Are you a seafood lover? Do you enjoy eating fish for its health benefits and delicious taste? If so, you might want to pay attention to this video. Not all fish are created equal, and some of them can actually harm your health due to toxins or other harmful chemicals that can have severe effects on your health. So in this video, we will reveal 7 kinds of fish you should never eat, and we will give you some healthy alternatives you can eat instead. So without further ado, let's dive in. Number 1. Tilapia. Tilapia is a popular choice for many people because it is cheap, mild, and easy to cook. But did you know that most of the tilapia sold in the US comes from countries like China, Vietnam, and Thailand, where there are no strict regulations on farming practices? That means these fish are often raised in dirty water, fed with antibiotics and hormones, and exposed to pesticides and chemicals. These contaminants can accumulate in the fish's flesh and pose a risk to your health. According to the American Oceans website, farm-raised tilapia contains fewer omega-3 fatty acids and more omega-6 fatty acids than wild tilapia. This can result in higher levels of inflammation and higher risk of chronic diseases like high blood pressure or heart disease. Farm-raised tilapia may also contain higher levels of toxins, such as dioxins and PCBs, due to their feed and living conditions. These toxins can increase your risk of cancer and other diseases. So, what can you eat instead of tilapia? A better alternative is wild-caught tilapia, which is generally lower in toxins and higher in omega-3s than farm-raised tilapia. Number 2. Swordfish. Swordfish is a large, predatory fish that can grow up to 15 feet long and weigh up to 1,400 pounds. It is prized for its firm, meaty texture and mild flavor. However, swordfish is also one of the most contaminated fish in the world due to its high position in the food chain. It has very high levels of mercury, which is a toxic metal that can damage your brain, nerves, and kidneys. Mercury can also harm unborn babies and young children. So how does mercury get into swordfish? It's a natural element that's released into the air by volcanoes, forest fires, and human activities like burning coal and mining. Mercury then falls into the water, where bacteria convert it into methylmercury. This is the form that accumulates in fish, especially large predators like swordfish. There are plenty of other fish that are safer and healthier to eat, such as salmon, sardines, trout, and herring. They have lower mercury levels and higher omega-3 levels than swordfish. They also taste great and are easy to prepare. Before we continue, if you have been enjoying the video so far, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss more videos like this. Number 3. Imported catfish. Catfish is another cheap and mild fish that many people like to eat. But just like tilapia, most of the catfish sold in the US comes from Vietnam or China. Imported catfish are raised in polluted water and treated with drugs that are banned in the US. According to a report by Exponent Center for Chemical Regulation and Food Safety, imported catfish are twice as likely to be contaminated with salmonella as domestic fish. Salmonella can cause diarrhea, fever, and abdominal cramps, and sometimes even death. But that's not all. Imported catfish also contain antimicrobial residues that can have serious long-term effects on human health. These residues can make people less responsive to antibiotic medications and increase the risk of drug-resistant pathogens that can be transmitted through the food chain. Some of the drugs used in imported catfish have even been linked to human bladder cancer. You might be wondering, how can this happen? Well, the problem is that imported catfish are not subject to the same inspections and regulations as domestic catfish. In fact, they are not even considered catfish by the US government. They are actually different species of fish, such as sway or basa, that are sold under the name of catfish. This means that they can bypass the strict inspection requirements that apply to all catfish. So, what can you eat instead of imported catfish? Well, a safer option is domestic catfish, which is raised in the US under stricter standards than imported catfish. Domestic catfish is also higher in omega-3s and lower in omega-6 than imported catfish. Number 4. Atlantic salmon. Salmon is one of the most popular fish in the world because it is delicious, nutritious, and versatile. However, not all salmon are equal, and some of them can be bad for your health and the environment. Atlantic salmon is one of them. Atlantic salmon is a species of salmon that is native to the Atlantic Ocean, but has been overfished to the point of extinction in the wild. Therefore, most of the Atlantic salmon sold in the market comes from fish farms, where they are raised in crowded cages or pens that are prone to disease and parasites. To prevent infections and promote growth, many fish farmers use antibiotics and other chemicals that can end up in the fish's flesh and affect your health. According to a study published in Science, farmed salmon contains higher levels of PCBs, dioxins, and other toxins than wild salmon. Another study found that fish is the third most common source of microplastics for Americans, and farmed salmon had more microplastics in their tissue than wild salmon. Another reason to avoid Atlantic salmon is that they are bad for the environment. Farmed salmon can escape from their cages and compete with wild salmon for food and habitat. They can also spread parasites and diseases to wild fish populations. Farmed salmon also consume more fish than they produce, contributing to overfishing and depletion of marine resources. So, what can you do to enjoy salmon without harming yourself or the planet? The best option is to choose wild-caught Pacific salmon, such as sockeye, coho, or pink. These salmon are more sustainable, healthier, and tastier than farmed Atlantic salmon. They have lower levels of contaminants and higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids, which are good for your heart and brain. Number 5. Shark. You might think that eating shark is a delicacy or a way to show off your adventurous palate. But before you order that shark fin soup or that grilled shark steak, you might want to think twice. Shark is a large predatory fish that can have high levels of mercury and other toxins in its flesh. Shark can also have high levels of urea, a waste product that can give it a strong ammonia-like smell and taste. Shark meat is often soaked in water or milk to reduce the urea content and improve the flavor. However, this does not remove the mercury and other pollutants that can harm your health. According to the Environmental Defense Fund website, shark has an average mercury level of 0.979 parts per million, which is almost 10 times higher than the EPA's limit. Shark can also contain other contaminants such as PCBs, dioxins, and pesticides that can increase your risk of cancer and other diseases. What can you eat instead of shark? A better option is mahi-mahi, which has a similar texture and flavor to shark, but has much lower levels of mercury and other toxins. Mahi-mahi is also a good source of protein, vitamin B12, selenium, and iodine. Number 6. King mackerel. King mackerel is a fast-swimming fish that can grow up to 6 feet long and weigh up to 100 pounds. It is known for its rich flavor and oily texture. However, king mackerel are at the top of the food chain in their habitat. They eat smaller fish that have already absorbed some mercury from the water and their prey. As a result, king mackerel ends up with a lot of mercury in their bodies. In fact, it is one of the most contaminated fish in the world. According to the Environmental Defense Fund website, king mackerel has an average mercury level of 0.73 parts per million, which is well above the EPA's limit. King mackerel can also contain other pollutants such as PCBs, dioxins, and pesticides that can increase your risk of cancer and other diseases. What can you eat instead of king mackerel? A safer alternative is Atlantic mackerel, which has a similar texture and flavor to king mackerel, but has much lower levels of mercury and other toxins. Atlantic mackerel has an average mercury level of 0.05 parts per million, which is below the EPA's limit. Atlantic mackerel is also a good source of protein, vitamin B12, selenium, and iodine. Number 7. Eel. Eel is a delicacy in some cuisines, especially Japanese and Chinese, but it's not a good choice for your health or the environment. Eel is high in fat and cholesterol, which can raise your blood pressure and increase your risk of heart disease. Eel is also very high in mercury and PCBs, which can affect your hormones and immune system. Eel is also endangered due to overfishing, habitat loss, and pollution. If you like eel sushi, try onagi, made from freshwater eel instead of saltwater eel. Freshwater eel is lower in mercury and more abundant than saltwater eel. You can also try other types of sushi made from salmon, tuna, or shrimp. So there you have it, 7 kinds of fish you should never eat and why. I hope this video has opened your eyes to the dangers of eating some types of seafood and has inspired you to make smarter choices when buying or ordering fish. Now, we want to hear from you. Do you eat these kinds of fish regularly? Do you have better alternatives? Share with us your experiences and opinions in the comments below. We love to hear them. Thanks for watching.